Kindler, everybody.
Yeah. I gotta turn my phone off.
Leave it on unless you're getting you might be needing a call. You never know.
I have a lot of things, yeah. I'm waiting on a lot of things. Because this festival leads to so many things for me every year. I got to be ready to go. Right after here, I might have to go to a workplace comedy.
Wow, a workplace comedy.
The joke there was that I'm going to get cast immediately in a workplace comedy.
Now,
see, this is the type of reaction I do get. Normally.
This is, one day a year, everybody's so excited to see you and hear from you, and then the rest of the time you're just out there slugging it out.
Oh no, it's busy all year round. I prefer to say I can't squeeze this in. No, it is a weird thing though that one day a year there's a lot of coverage.
Yes, there's a lot of coverage. Suddenly the papers want to know what pisses you off or who you're upset with, but you would tell them any other day, wouldn't you?
I would. Here I'm available. As I said yesterday during my speech, I am changed my name to the Andy Christ. Changing water to wine. I don't know why I'm doing my act, Ron. That's not really...
you know what? Do parts of it.
What's the deal with these elevators?
Have you noticed?
Have you noticed?
Yeah.
Have you noticed people observing things?
Yes.
It's crazy. What's up with that?
Yeah. Everyone fights over who started observational comedy, too, whether it was...
Who are these people arguing over who started observational? Yeah, well, Seinfeld didn't start it, but he took it to the next level.
Yeah.
Why am I sounding like I don't like Seinfeld? I like him. I love Seinfeld. Why am I feel like I have to say positive things about certain things? Because I went after Seinfeld last year about the whole... when he was whining about his gay French king.
Oh, yeah. He can't do college gigs.
Well, inconsistencies really bother me. Seinfeld, there's nobody funnier than him. The show Seinfeld, hilarious. He's always been, when he's interviewed, just insane. He says the most insane things. Like, he used to say, the crowd, it's always the comedian. You should be able to perform for every crowd, anywhere. And then last year, all of a sudden, he goes, what's the deal? Well, how come the crowds stink now?
These kids. Well, he said that because he did so many black clubs back in the 80s.
Right, exactly.
That was his thing. He was always working Harlem.
Yeah, so he was yelling at his daughter. I don't even want to go back into it. But remember, he was like yelling at his daughter because she doesn't know about civil rights. And I said the first black person he met was George Wallace. Not the guy who ran for president.
Yeah.
Everyone knows who George Wallace, the comedian, is, right?
Does
all right.
everyone... Wait. And does everyone know George Wallace, the guy that was shot? Yes, they forget him. That's the one that's sad. I mean, that guy did everything.
His greatest hits, segregation now, segregation tomorrow, next year, again with the segregation.
Yeah. When you run on, trust me, you'll never see a black person at work. That is the oddest thing. And then, like, people are just...
Trust me.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was literally everything that he ran on at the time.
Then he, to his credit, although I don't need to spend a lot of time crediting him, at the end of his life, he did feel bad, and I think he apologized to, like, John Lewis and a whole bunch of...
That was that kind of was his Larry Flint stage. It seems like a lot of times once you paralyze someone, they're like, I get it now.
Right.
I had more time to sit and think. And
we're not advocating this.
No.
But we don't want any Jack Rubies coming out of here. Rubensteins.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But I think if Trump's legs didn't work for a week or two, he might start thinking.
Again, I have enough of my own problems.
Kindler calls for the paralyzation of Donald J. Trump.
I go after him like so viciously, Trump, every day. It doesn't do it. It hasn't done anything yet.
No, that's his. He really is the Teflon Don. He's gonna have to take them back. Nothing sticks to this guy.
Well, that's because we really. I mean, it's like it used to be. It's a joke now to even say the media is horrible because they're just absent. They're like treating him like a legitimate human being.
Well, the thing about the media is he literally is ratings. and that's their job
That's
to
all
get
they
ratings.
care about. It's sickening to think about it. But the guy is a madman. He's a raving lunatic. He's any adjective you want to use to describe someone who's totally, he doesn't know what he's going to say next. And people go, he's a master brander. He doesn't know what he's saying. People think he's a hack. That's the thing that bothers me. He's a master showman.
Yeah.
Anyone ever see The Apprentice? It sucked.
Yeah.
It was a terrible show.
Right. Which if you ever watched that show at all, it looks like he had no idea who he was going to fire until the last second, which again is what you want in a president. Not completely sure what you think until you start talking. But you know what's strange too is he has zero heat in New York City. You know what I mean? I work, a block away from where his house, and no one in New York talks about him at all.
He's hated there.
Yeah.
Well, that's where they came up with the short-fingered Bulgarian. Was
right.
When,
that was
Spy Magazine.
Yeah. And but he plays well in the Heartland. That's the deal. I guess.
Me too. That's where we share. We are both crowd pleasers. But I don't know if I got to say that. Maybe I did say this in the speech yesterday. But he really does have that thing where he has the rhythm of a comedian. I used to do a joke about 70s DJs where they sound like comedians, but they're not comedians, but they have the same rhythms. It was like, that was Aerosmith. JD's got a gun. Watch out, everybody. JD's walking around with some kind of a firearm. That was Aerosmith. Dude looks like a lady. Watch out, fellas. There's a dude walking around. Might have some kind of a dress on. And he does the same thing with insult kind of comedy. He goes, crooked Hillary. It's true. It's true. Like he just said a joke. It's true. It's true.
He's tagging a joke that never happened. Am I right, folks? Hillary.
That's what he does. Yeah. Am I right? Crooked Hillary. Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Am I right?
But that's the strange thing. I think that we look at people as well as they speak. You know what I mean? He's a confident speaker. You know what I mean? Whether he's doing well or not, he's not. You never see him with flop sweat. You never see him worrying about himself.
He looks a little. I think he gets really kind of crazy looking with the. It's like he congeals in this area in his T-zone. He starts to congeal in his T-zone, and sometimes during by the middle of a speech, you see all of his as if it's an inflated balloon. It seems to, but no, it expands and just like a gelatinous flat. Okay, look, folks, descriptions are not my thing. I'm not a description comic.
That's the missing piece.
That's it. If I only had descriptive skills from my reading of the Hardy Boys, Chet Shortled. I don't know what I'm saying. Did you read the Hardy Boys when you were a kid?
You know what? I liked. What were the two Hardy Boys' names?
Frank and
who was Frank and Joe? Loved Frank, hated Joe. I felt like he held him back. And I believe the same thing happens with the Smothers Brothers. I don't know.
Oh, but you like Dickie.
Do you remember when you were a kid, you're like, Jesus, Dickie, what are you, nuts? He's on a riff here.
He's going to have Well, I used to, a thing about, they always say, with improv comedy, it's you agreeing is funny. Yeah, because conflict's terrible.
Yes,
if the Smothers Brothers only agreed, Mom always liked you best. Oh, I feel terrible about that.
Yeah.
Wish I had been there more for you. And nobody knows who the Smothers Brothers are.
No.
It's unbelievable.
They don't know George Wallace. They don't know the Smothers Brothers.
The Ritz Brothers.
Yeah, we're literally going to have to run into the time tunnel to do this interview. We're going to have to go. No, now they don't know the time tunnel. That's where I am with this. Land of the Giants.
Who am I, Dr. What? Why do you have my laminate? Oh, okay.
He's running around, running up charges on your room.
On my phone card from 1995.
Some of them no phone cards.
Phone cards.
That's it.
No, now that everything with them is a SIM card. These kids, they don't remember. They don't remember when we had to have a SCSI connection to a computer.
Who else were you into this year? Who else?
I talked about Ricky Gervais, and the thing that I loved about him. Well, I don't love him. I do love to hate his whole persona because he's so. The thing that's amazing to me is when a comedian is not self-aware. That's what really cracks me up. Because on some level, I love the original Office, In fact, I did a thing yesterday about replaying a conversation between me and an actual conversation between my wife and I. Was we're home and my wife, and we have an office in one of our bedrooms is an office, and my wife says, "I thought I heard some sounds in the office," and I said, "The original office," and then of course, I laughed at it. But the fact that he will do things like, I'm doing a joke, I have a joke, it's so offensive, even I'm offended by it. Just this and then he has a new comedy night where what kind of a person here's his problem. If you've done stand-up one time, I would say to you, welcome to the club. Well, I won't say it, literally that way. But I don't believe in hierarchies.
Right.
The first day you do comedy, and if you continue doing it, you could be funny the first day, you're a comedian or whatever. I don't believe in wait till you're at my level. But the other way is worse, where you can think because you've done it 20 or 30 times that you are the world's greatest stand-up. And that's the way he approaches everything. And he's very much like Trump that way. It's that narcissistic, like if every other one of your tweets is, I don't care what people think about me. Well, obviously you care what people think about you. It's literally impossible for you to keep tweeting that you don't. And then he keeps telling people when they yell at him, well, I'll just go to my mansion and sleep. It's like he really thinks that the fact that he's rich is a credit.
Oh, wait, so you're like, oh, I didn't know you had a mansion. My fault.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You are amazing.
I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Well, but that's the thing. I think that why everybody looks forward to this every year is because no one takes a shot at Gervais. He's in that kind of, as you said about Seinfeld, he's just kind of, there's certain people, they're untouchable.
Yeah, well, there is this thing that is an quote unwritten rule, and then comics would get mad at me. I assume everyone's mad at me, but the idea that you don't make fun of other people, you don't make fun of other comics,
right?
It's ludicrous to me. I mean, you could do Michael Jackson jokes for 7 hours, but I can't point out that Gallagher maybe should take time off from smashing fruit. I mean, I never understood that.
Right.
But I understand it from the Omerta. Is that the right word? Looking at Rich Voss like he's Italian.
Yeah.
But no, what is it? No, what is it where you agree that we're all on this thing and don't
I'm going to
go
say
after
Omerta. That's where I'm going to go
Yeah.
with it. Yeah, because I have nothing else.
But I'm compelled to do it. That's the
Yeah.
other problem is I'm compelled to do it. I'm doing it in my own head,
You're doing it
constantly
anyway.
being judgmental.
Yeah. Right.
So why not try and make some money out of it?
And I think other comics do it all the time, but not on stage.
Leno's famous. I mean, I don't want him to sue me, and if he does sue me, I don't want him to touch his Tonight Show money. But he's, from what I've heard, he's famous for being vicious about comics.
Right.
And funny, and in a funny way too.
Yeah.
But that's an example of someone who decided that's that outside in kind of thinking. I need to be the Tonight Show host, even though I don't like anything. I'm not interested in anything but cars, and even when I talk about cars, I don't sound that interested.
Yeah.
He doesn't like music. This is true. He doesn't like music. He doesn't like sports. He doesn't like food except for hamburgers or whatever he eats. He doesn't like shirts except for denim shirts. He literally has nothing to talk. He has nothing to talk about. Johnny Carson had things to talk about.
Yeah.
Letterman was a curious person about the world, and so, but he felt like he had to be, and then he also felt like he had to be nice. So that was the whole thing.
Right, because that was kind of the acceptable thing to do. But he was the first one too who kind of treated the Tonight Show like a blue collar job. Like, hey, I just work here. And everyone's like, "What are you, crazy? You got the most powerful gig in the country."
Well, that's his phony persona, though, the blue collar guy, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember backstage meeting him at the Comedy Magic Club, and here's the thing: not that he made the mistake, but if he's bothered at all by what I say about him, it's all based on the initial interaction I have with him at the Comedy Store. So I do hold a grudge. So I had said something to him about whatever. I had an idea for a line or something. And he looked at me like I was, looked through me basically. And then he said, yeah, I gotta work. Right before his set.
Yeah.
You're not going to work, Jay. People in the coal mines are going to work.
Yes.
You have never, in fact, never worked.
But if you saw him in the 80s, I'm sure, I mean, he was a killer.
Yes.
Until they gave him the Tonight Show, and then he was like,
Is it ironic or whatever?
Yeah.
Because I always use that word incorrectly, that he was at his best on Letterman's show.
He was unbelievable on
Yeah.
that show. And that was the show that everybody was like, holy shit, tonight, make sure you're up for it, because we weren't even taping then, I don't think. But because those shows would kill. And he would have a new 8 minutes just to make Dave left. That was actually the closest that it came to the old Carson show, I think, when those two guys were kind of interacting together, where comics really trying to be funny to make, each other laugh.
I think that, to me, I feel like Dave, for my generation, now I go back, I'm watching all the old Johnny's Carsons. I mean, I'm old enough to have watched it when I was a kid, but Dave really took what Johnny did and not perfected it, but went along down the road with it, but also Dave had come up with these comics too. Like, so anytime Richard Lewis, the greatest appearances in the world, I couldn't stop watching him on Letterman when he would come on.
Yeah, this is amazing.
Yeah, so I think, and then the other example would be like Bill Murray. All those people would come on.
Right, Bill Murray. Fran Lebowitz was also another one. Sandra
Chris
Bernhardt
Elliott
on that show was always insane. But that show, for our generation, if you could not even believe it was on TV. You know what I mean?
You couldn't.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what is true subversion. It's always like when people use the word subversion, Letterman was truly subversive because he wasn't trying to be subversive. His subversion would be like, and I've been influenced by this, one line into the bit, you bail on it. Yeah. And you say, oh, this comedy piece was nice. And that, to me, was the true subversive quality of it. Was like he was basically saying, look at life and detach yourself a little bit from it. And then the other thing is he would spray New Yorkers with water. It's the greatest thing.
All that kind of stuff, which I guess you got to go next, like Tom Green is the next person who took that to, all right, I'm going to use Letterman as my dad in terms of broadcasting. But that's the other thing, is Letterman came from like a broadcasting background, so he thought about the entire show. You know what I mean? Like, he wanted to put his guest over.
And he truly was. And here's the thing, like, I think it would have been, he was such a hero of mine. So the fact that I got to, it still seems like a dream that he went out of his way after the set I had to have me come on the show and do these field pieces.
Right.
But I feel like when he ever, have you heard him talk about Johnny? He always felt like intimidated. Not that Johnny was trying to intimidate him. That's how I feel around Dave. I feel like I'm not Bill Murray. I'm not his contemporary. And so I always felt like, why can't I get over this deference thing? I don't think I really could have.
Well, it wasn't your place
right,
to get over
exactly.
it, just like I'm sure certain ball players, when they came up, they're like, now I'm playing with Mickey Mantle? No.
Yeah.
I'm not his fucking teammate.
I am the Mickey Mantle of comedy. Is that where you're going with this? I got set back by osteomyelitis early on.
I was hinting around because your dad was a coal miner and the way you came up.
Oh, I'm just doing what my dad did, just going to work. Punching in. I wish if Leno could punch in, or at least have a photographer take a picture of him punching in, he'd do it.
Well, it's time to leave.
I gotta go. Just do what I do there, yeah. His other thing is, I don't want to get into it, but I think everything he says is a lie. He always comes up with his... Have you ever heard one of his anecdotes?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I used to mock it. I would mock it in that book that he had a book that he wrote, and it was, or maybe no, he wrote it, but it was like I get to LA there, and this guy's hitchhiking, and I pick him up, and he's a guy's very, very friendly, and he's really friendly. It turns out he's gay. Or the story about leaving the money on the improv piano. You've heard that one, right?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So I used to drive from Boston every night to do a set. That's got to be a lie. Every night he drove 4 hours. Yeah. So of course I was working in the car place, and because I had all the money in cash from the car place. Why would you leave the car place with cash? And I drove to the improv. I put it on the piano, and I drove all the way back to Boston. And I don't have that money for I drove back to the improv. It's still there.
And now Chapter 5. After that,
Chapter 5. I went to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the flood was the club was flooded. I had to do my act from a canoe.
Oh, that's
It
hysterical.
was all Helen Kushnick's fault.
But you know, money. I will say this about Leno: money never changed him. He doesn't seem a bit.
There is a sad quality to a guy who was so revered.
Oh, yeah.
Me, anybody who saw him in the
Anybody?
80s.
It's maybe I never saw a guy rock a club the way he did. I saw people falling. It was like 85 or 86, and people were just falling down.
And for all the right reasons.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he just came out and it was. This was pre-ISIS. That's where we're going with that.
Those guys kill.
Oh, yeah. Now everyone actually does check for exits. You know, wherever we go.
Talk about a closer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I don't even know what I'm saying.
No,
it's just creepy. It's just creepy.
Everyone got it except for Jeffrey Gurian. He's just, I don't know.
He gets it all.
Does he? He's
You
just
know what?
taking it.
He signs everything as seen on the Too Much Tuna episode.
He went out and did that with him last night, right, Jeffrey? You were
that's the
part of it.
greatest
It's just gonna. In 3 minutes, it changed his life.
And
3 minutes.
Mulaney's not Jewish. I just don't understand that.
He's.
He's not. I know he's not Jewish, but he could be more Jewish than anybody I've ever met.
But those were the guys, like we said when we were growing up. Those were the kind of Jewish guys that we would see on TV.
It's like those. Yeah,
You know?
and yet I think it's completely. They've taken real people to a more real level.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
It's the oh hello thing, right?
Oh, hello.
Yeah.
Broadway.
Hey, we don't plug other things
No, we
during
don't.
the.
We got everything we need.
When am
right
I?
here,
If I'm going to
Jeffrey.
Broadway, you bring that up now.
But there are some, like we said, Sacred Cows. You went after Robin Williams for a couple years.
And to my credit, I stopped when he passed away.
Yes. Because that's what we all were worried about.
I used to do a thing about how it's hard for me to stop doing it, but I'll say, don't worry, I'm not going to Robin Williams the meeting, or because every comic has that tendency.
Does this go?
Yeah, like even when I'm talking to you right now, I know, like when I hear people and they're interviewed, I go, it doesn't seem like they're. Like sometimes I feel like, they're one step away from their reality. But I always think about that myself. It's like, I have to resist the urge or keep an eye on the urge to just like jump all around and not listen. You know?
Yeah.
And so that's the Robin Williams syndrome where you can't stop.
When Robin would just jump up, run into the audience, run back, and everybody would go, "That was great.
That was great."
Yeah, what happened?
Well, I'll get. Yeah, nothing actually happened. Oh, this guy. Oh, I used to. I'm doing the. Oh, the laugh meter guy. Oh. And the black, and he was always the black guy was always sounded like, and the black guy's going, "Oh man, river."
You know, I remember, it's so funny you brought this up because my kids said to me when they were little, they're like, why does he say black people talk like that?
Yeah.
And I had to say, well, they used to. I mean, I had to explain because like right away they were like, I don't get this guy at all.
Right.
And I'm like, what black people say this? I'm going, years ago.
Years ago, except in Bill Maher's act, he still does the. He would do jokes like, "How come Obama can't be the mean black guy?"
Right.
Really, Bill? Is this cutting edge?
Well,
political insight.
He dates black women, so that's.
I don't know anything about this statement, although I have heard many things. No, he seems like a really nice guy towards women, Bill Maher. You know that he's one of those guys, very nice off stage. It seems like completely cold, calculating, misogynist, narcissist. But when you get him off stage, he's very giving.
He's just a sweet guy. How can I help?
Yeah, how can I help? Me hating Muslims is a shtick. I can't help it. It kills.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying that like a callback.
Yeah,
because that
Not
would just be
ISIS,
hacky.
yeah. This actually, the weird thing, this audience kind of acts like all these people are going to come walking in here in a couple moments.
Oh, I'm scared to say I don't want to.
Yeah.
See, that's who I wouldn't go after.
You would never.
Because like last year I said about Seinfeld, like what am I? I'm going to go after Seinfeld. What am I worried about? That a lot of guys with puffy shirts will show up outside my house. Who's this guy who doesn't like Seinfeld? What is it? What is his deal? But when I went after Opie of. No,
You went after Anthony.
That was scary. because
Yes.
I got like concentrated. I don't know what's the deal with sending Jews. What's the deal? Why do you send Jews pictures of people in the concentration camps, the bodies? What's the thought behind there?
They mailed this to you, or was it on
No,
Twitter?
Facebook. My sister says one day, because I don't go to Facebook enough during the whole me going after Anthony thing. My sister goes, "Look, I'm all for free speech, but you might want to look at your Facebook page." And on my Facebook page, it was like a takeoff on that Tis character.
Yeah, so when
It was not it was not Jim Norton, but it's some guy.
yeah,
They're posing as him, and they were just like, it's just a constant. It's all along the lines of Hitler was right kind of jokes.
So, so how long when you do something, like if there's somebody that's more kind of beloved by their audience, and you do a couple of jokes, how long does it take before that eases down? How long?
Well, the thing that's weird now is it usually takes like. If you mute, I use mute more than block now. Mm-hmm. So if I mute like a whole day, it starts to go away, But Sam Harris, who's that new atheist guy, I can't stand him, and I can't stand Richard Dawkins. Those people are like the most vicious people. The people who follow him. The new atheists, they're the most vicious people in the world. So if I heckle Sam Harris, it'll happen for 2 or 3 days afterwards. And sometimes I will avoid doing things just because I don't want to go through the aggravation of the muting. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes I get scared.
You do think it's scary, but if you mute it, then you don't know the hate that's out there.
Right, but I am scared about getting beaten up or, it's like this has been the ongoing issue since I was 6 years old.
It hasn't.
I was 4'11" through high school.
Yeah. I was always friends with Italian guys like Anthony, so it's the same thing. It hasn't changed at all.
Well, Corolla, like I'm afraid Corolla would punch me in the face. People go, "Are you afraid to confront these people you talk about?" Yes. I don't want to see them on an elevator or a closed space.
But have you ever done Anthony's show? Have you ever?
No, Anthony's show, I never did. I did 2 guys who seemed like Elvis, who was on that channel. Does that make sense?
2 guys, Elvis. Does anybody remember?
They were like kind of in your face shock jocks, and they had a show.
JV and Elvis.
That's what it was. And I got
Elvis,
through that. That was fun.
So so I think you would also enjoy, doing Opie's show or Anthony's show as well.
Yeah, I think the problem with the Anthony show is I think he crossed Anthony's show. I'm here. It's like, let me see. He's offered me to come on. What should I do? No. But the thing I'm saying is to me, when you get into that white supremacy stuff, and it's like, I gotta check, please.
I know, but look, in my neighborhood, he wouldn't even be considered white. So that's the. But I know him very well. I would. But I would go on that show with you, and I think you'd end up having a ball, and you guys would. I think it would be interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
But to me, like from what I know, what I've heard is like when Patrice was alive, he could be. It was like Anthony had these tendencies, but then with Patrice, it was like, okay, maybe because I think he probably is racist. I mean, I don't think it's a character he's playing.
I would think that.
I think Trump's racist.
Yeah, I mean, I think that everybody in this room at least knows somebody from their family that they think is further along on I'm going to now call it the racial spectrum. I'm going to treat it the same way like as autism. Like, we don't know exactly where on the racial spectrum they are. So, I mean, there's plenty. Like, if I said I can't know right-wing people or whatever, I would probably just have to say to my family, goodbye forever.
Right.
I'm never coming back for another Thanksgiving.
That's really true, except for me, not with Anthony, but with Trump. I kind of draw the line at Trump. Like,
Trump would be the guy.
If there's anybody there's nobody I know personally, like nobody in my family voting for him. But if there's somebody voting for him, I just can't accept. I'm not saying I won't talk to them.
Yeah.
But I really don't want the subject to come up, and I am harshly judging them. And it's like, I just feel like that, he's not Archie Bunker. It's not like there's nothing lovable about
right.
He just like, to me, he's like the world's most, he is a Hitler, Trump. He really is. He would be a Hitler if he could get in office.
And then there's
not your father's Hitler.
Well, I guess Hitler was pretty much liked by his own people, right? I mean, they're like, oh, God, yeah.
You got to get to know him. A lot of...
Everybody likes the guy with quick solutions. They're like, hey.
Yeah.
Like if someone, a plumber says, I can fix this in 15 minutes, I'm like, get over here.
Right.
I know nothing about his background. The trust is immediately, come on in.
Yeah, and
do it.
They also didn't know he was Hitler before he was Hitler. That's the
Right.
thing. I've been comparing Trump to Hitler since the first time he declared. People are like, what do you? It's unfair. It's not an unfair. What's the word? Association or comparison. It's not unfair comparison because I think this was what Hitler was before he was Hitler. They didn't know it was like, oh, the guy with the mustache. He's crazy. No, first of all, he probably looked like Charlie Chaplin to a lot of Germans, and wasn't that crazy to them.
So you think if Trump gets elected,
Yes.
this could turn for real dark in 2-3 years?
I think he would try to make it dark immediately. I think he would ban all Muslims. I think he would do. I think he's has a pathological illness of some kind. But that doesn't mean that I can't go on Anthony's show. Well, I don't know the whole thing. When you're saying it, just makes me uncomfortable. I did a Letterman spot, and this is the thing, like where I feel like the worst thing. You could say anything about me, but I don't think you can call me a hack. No. And I don't know, like that's my big thing. Say what you will. I am no hack. So when he tore apart my last Letterman set, and he was like, oh, how hacky this is, that seemed pathetic to me. Go after me because I'm short or
maybe he was
annoying.
Maybe he was, like when people say stuff about each other, it's a thing they know is going to, get to you.
Well, that didn't get to me because it just seemed silly to me. Like he's like, he went line by line over but that was a couple of years ago. Now it's all water under the bridge, right, folks? Yeah, I don't know though. It's a very interesting thing about what drawing the line means and how you deal with that.
Yeah.
All I was upset about when that happened was, don't tell me it's not, first of all, that people mix up free speech with a job. That's not what free speech does not mean you get to keep your job. It's like you can't work in a bank and then at night you're saying kill the Jews. And then if they fire you at the bank, you say, no, I have my freedom of speech. I don't know if that's a good example.
No, I get it's also it's tough. Because now who decides who gets to say what? Corporations. So you can say whatever you want, but you can't work a job that you would
right.
like
I
to
always take it like if I ran ABC and someone came in and pitched me the Nazi skinhead hour, I'm not obligated to pick up that show.
Right.
If that show offends me, it's okay for me to say I don't want that show because it offends me. You don't have the right to have a network show.
I get that
with your racism,
but see,
it's a problem. I think is what you're saying.
No, it is a problem, and the thing is let's suppose on any show, the people who complain to a network are not the fans of the show. They're not the people who watch the show. Like suddenly, if Jimmy Kimmel was on every night, and then just out of nowhere he said something crazy, and his fans were offended, that'd be one thing. But if Jimmy Fallon's fans start to complain to ABC, let's get rid of this guy, and that's kind of what happens. There's groups of people whose job is to stop people from saying the stuff that they like. So a lot of Trump backers or right wing people could, whenever you go on the show, they could complain, and then they better not have him back on.
Well, that's Trump's whole thing. He's like, he'll sue you. If you say something about him, like he's not a free speech advocate.
Yeah. So, I mean, free speech was like just about the government, but now there's this whole weird gray area.
That's why I think you're absolutely right. And I would never be somebody who would argue that. See, my whole thing was like when a lot of those things were happening where comics were may or may not have been saying, like, when Tracy Morgan said those things on stage. Right. Like, I love Tracy Morgan. But when, I had never seen his stand-up. But apparently, back in the day, he would just say ridiculous things and mean things. And if my son was gay, whatever he said that one time. I don't think you have the right to say that and then say nobody has the right to object to it. Right. Right?
We agree.
So yeah, you could object to it. But I wouldn't legislate. I would have never even. I would have never said fire Anthony. That wasn't my point, or anybody. I probably would not fire any. I would not be on those boycotts. I'm trying to think of, would there be something conceivably that could happen where I would join a boycott of something? I think maybe. Yeah. But in general, I think it is a problem when you use the power of I don't like it, so I'm going to ban it.
Yeah,
type
it doesn't take that many complaints. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, it literally 200 complaints. If it's done at the right person, they're just like, hey, let's get rid of this shit. You know, we can't go on like this.
Well, the perfect example is that woman who tweeted something insensitive. There's a guy who writes books about this, public shaming. He's I forgot his name, but she tweeted something kind of insensitive, and then she landed in Africa, and she was a PR person.
Oh, yeah, I remember that story, yeah.
I wish I don't like that she got publicly shamed. You know, that's a thing too.
Sure.
You know, and I was like alienated almost every single one of my friends. I was so enraged by the whole Woody Allen thing because it was like all these people, they think an article in Vanity Fair is a legal document, and so that everybody assumed that they knew what happened with Woody Allen when they, you know, to me it's like. I get very upset by mob mentality. And so mob mentality can be very dangerous.
Yeah, and that's actually where the free speech issue is now. And like, if you go back to, you know, brought up Tracy Morgan, he had Tina Fey on his side immediately, who ran the show. She had enough power. She went to NBC. She's like, look, Tracy in 2 years is going to be in a car accident that causes brain damage. But he's already suffering from it now. You know what I mean? That was always Tracy's act. Like, he would just say something and then not even remember half an hour before.
Right.
You know.
Well, but I guess my thing was like Louis C.K. at that point said, you can say anything you want on the stage. And all I'm saying is, you don't have the right to say that's a magic eraser area.
Right.
You know? And Kramer, Rebecca Richards, I mean, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, people looked at him differently, and in a way, I don't see how you couldn't look at him differently.
He never walked on stage again, as far as I know, right? He never did
I don't
stand
think
up
he
again.
has, and I wouldn't say I wouldn't want to see him in something.
Right.
Because I think you have to forgive people, and you have to, and I think something was going on with him to go to that place, but so I don't even know what to say about it. I wouldn't ban, you know, not watch Seinfeld or anything like that.
And that's the thing. That's the opposite of public shaming, is trying to teach people, look, here's, you know, what you're doing, and here's where it leads, and do you feel that way? You know, just slowing it down, but not bringing them on the show so the audience can yell at them. You know, we're in this... I did this thing one time at the Friars Club, and it was about when Bill Hicks's documentary.
Stop name dropping.
Yeah, and it was really well received.
No, it was the Friars Club. Sorry,
people were loving it, but but they showed Hicks the first night that something had happened. It's when they went after that. Those nuts that were living in Texas at the time, the Waco incident, right?
Koresh?
And and he went on stage, and he was furious, just, you know, laying this shit out, and then said, you know, maybe he had lost it at that time. And I'm like, no, that was the first day he had found out about it. Like, eventually, he might have comedy about that. But the first day he went on, he was fucking furious. And I think that's the part that's kind of disappeared. In other words, suppose we had only heard about Kramer screaming like that in a club, not seeing it. You know what I mean?
Right.
We would have reacted to it totally differently.
Yeah, no, I mean, this whole idea where something happens and you weren't there at the original event,
right?
But then these sides get drawn up. Of like, well, she had the right to heckle, and he didn't have the right to say. It's all at some point unreal, you know, and and it is unfair.
Yeah,
I agree. You know, I think it's a problem.
I think that it's easier for all of us to go, that guy's an asshole, immediately. I mean, that's just as judgmental as we're complaining that the other person.
Right,
is.
and the thing is, like when Seinfeld came out with that whole thing, I think he was bringing up a point that is an interesting point. But the truth is, he was upset. He did this thing where he goes, well, people, they check their cell phone like a gay French king, and he does all these flourishes, right? And it was like for 4 seconds he didn't kill, and so he assumed that the crowd hated him. Maybe the crowd didn't like that bit that much, but the truth is, in 10 years, we're not going to be able to... It's not going to be cool to say, hey, nice to see you back in men's clothes.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like certain things... It's like people say, why can't I use the word retarded? Because the word retarded was originally used as a real way of describing someone, but then when it came to be used of nice going, retard, then you could see how people would be
Right.
insulted. And to me, part of growth can be, oh, I didn't realize that. And you can evolve that way. So I think that some of the things that you're upset about are like traditional. Like, I don't like to do jokes about people's weight. I always think I just think it's cheap. You know, it's like, and it's hurtful, and what's the payoff on it? And I think that the jokes that are simply based on this person is, like what Trump made fun of the writer from the New York Times. I'm just making fun of the person's disability.
Right.
I think it's good that those don't become jokes anymore.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, part of the mix here is people see, well, we can't make fun of anything. Like the two comics sitting around when nobody's watching, we can say the most vicious things in the world because we know where we're all coming from.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose that part of life.
Yeah. Well, that's always weird about the word itself. In my town, there was an old Nike site, which is like this, place that they would shoot missiles in the 1950s. They stopped using it, so they put a special needs school there, right? So when we teased each other, we call each other Nikes, right?
Right.
We got by high school, you weren't allowed to use the word Nike.
Yes.
No, because that it was the intention. Of course, there's nothing. Now there's a fucking shoe called it, and everyone loves it. But at the time, the teachers
Right.
say it again. But see, that I think that's what when it's always about intent, what we're doing, and yet we take it back to the word. But Trump has used the PC thing. People love him for saying he's anti-PC.
Right, because he's a racist. So he's like basically saying, yeah. What he's saying is he's using the word PC for that whatever horrible thing he says should be covered up by the fact that he's not being PC.
Right.
But I'll give you examples. There's nobody funnier in the world than Rickles, right?
Right.
So in a certain sense, like when Rickles said to Letterman, he goes, he made some Japanese joke, and Letterman was like, whoa, easy. He goes, what's the problem? I go out to L.A. and I go to Mr. Chow. He references a Chinese reference. So it's like, I think. And Rickles was it. My dad passed away, but Rickles is the exact same age as my dad. And my dad wasn't like Rickles, but I think that Rickles, I think he might have a little bit of, whatever, not even prejudice, whatever you want to call it. But his heart is so amazing.
Right.
It's like Denzel. He says to Denzel Washington, "Oh, we'll go over there and sweep up," and Denzel Washington is like doubled over.
Right,
you know what I mean? Because
Right.
what is his intent?
Right,
There's nobody
exactly.
funnier than them. So when
Yeah.
on Hello Dummy, he goes down the road, the Italian guy and the Polish guy and the thing. It's hilarious.
Right.
And it's the same thing, like I'll talk about someone like Nick DiPaolo. It's like, I don't care what your politics are, not as long as, but if you're funny, I really don't care.
Yes.
Because like to me, if you're laughing, you're already bypassing
Right.
whether it's right or wrong.
And Nick
You know?
Nick DiPaolo is one of the funniest, quickest people ever. And yet there is a thing of people, I think it came from being on Louis, where Louis actually took that character when Nick did Louis' show
Yeah.
and moved him over a little bit and made him seem more serious about it. But I think Nick works in that way of, isn't this a funny thing to say? Can you imagine that thoughts like this?
Yeah, and I do. I mean, I think the idea of having a sanitized environment where, people will say, "Oh, I can't like Nick DiPaolo," or
Right.
"I can't." That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
I don't think. Do you think that's what's happening, or is that what you're
No,
concerned about
I think
happening?
when I talked to Nick before, he was like, and I go, well, some people are like afraid. He goes, that's from Louis' show. It's not.
Right, that's
that
true,
was the
that's
thing.
true.
Because there are certain people who are like, oh, I don't know if I'd get along with Nick. And like you said, this guy, he's got a heart of gold. He's really, really funny, but that's the area that he works. Now, also, like you said, there are people who politically disagree. There should be, political disagreements. I don't know if we go as far as we are now, but
Right, and I'm not sure what you're saying.
well,
like,
I'm saying, like, as far as like you're saying, you couldn't be with. You understand conservatism. You understand why
Absolutely,
some people,
yeah.
And
I didn't call Romney a Nazi,
Right.
And I got very angry at Romney. I mean,
Right.
I have very strong political views, but to me, this is all over the line, I guess.
Yeah. But isn't that interesting? It almost doesn't seem like Romney gets a lot of respect, or the Bushes get a lot of respect, or John McCain, where they're like, hey, we're not playing this fucking game.
Well, look
You
what
know I mean?
McCain, that we took the microphone from that woman, remember?
Yeah.
I think he's a Muslim. Remember
Yeah, he
that
called him
woman
a
that
Muslim.
thing?
He
No,
took the microphone back.
no,
Yeah.
ma'am, no, ma'am. He's a good American.
But those guys, they're not part of the Trump thing. And like you said, there's disagreements politically.
Yeah, I think the GOP is going to have to die, and a real conservative movement is going to have to start. You can't base, because my whole life you can't. My whole thing is don't lie to me, okay? So don't tell me you're really worried about voter fraud, because I'll tell everybody in this room right now, nobody is stealing an election by going down to a poll and being an imposter. How could you possibly win an election? You'd have to make sure that everybody, the real person, you drugged them or you distracted them, and then you go down to the poll. There's no reason for the countries that have voter ID have it because they're supplied with voter ID. But a 90-year-old black woman doesn't have photo ID. So I don't argue with me. You want to stop people you don't think are going to vote for you from voting, and that's how I think the GOP has been winning elections since the LBJ. LBJ predicted it, and I think you can't win. I think that has to go away. You have to have a true conservative reason to do something, not just for wedge issues and stuff.
Do you trust the Clintons? Do you feel on board there?
Here's the thing. I don't think anybody. I voted for. I'm like an Obama. I'm going to cry when he leaves office. I have, people had photos of JFK. I have that altars to him. I love Obama. I love him so much. I hated the campaign Hillary ran in 2008 against him. I think she's run a much better campaign. I'm not, I just think, how can anybody know, well, which one do you want to believe? That they killed Vince Foster? Mm-hmm. Is that the one you want to choose to believe? It's been 40 years of this stuff where they made up stuff about them. So I don't know. I think she's a good person. I don't think she's a bad person. Do I think that she's, I think they could be, both Clintons they have a certain philosophy that they seem to sometimes, like politicians, can prevaricate. But I think her heart's in the right place. I know a lot of people disagree with me on that, but I like her.
I think it's interesting that you said that you're going to cry with Obama leaves, because I think that's just, after that last speech is the first time that people think this is going to be an end of a certain era. But I think, and I've said this even years ago, he is going to be, for better or worse, the most powerful ex-president in history, because he's going to be able to bring back that kind of speeches that, that first caught fire. He's going to be able to criticize from the outside. And I think he's going to be able to turn around and pull people together voting that haven't before. I think he's going to shock the hell out of people how powerful he's going to be outside.
And I think when history looks back on it, the things that he did, because he very clearly said it was like Social Security. Everybody was against it when it started, but now everybody who could imagine doing without it. The stuff he did with the health care, I think, will historically go down as being an amazing thing. But,
Well, and I think also that people are going to step back and go, really, that was the first black dude? Because when I grew up, I would read Jackie Robinson books constantly. And
he's the Jackie Robinson.
He is the Jackie Robinson, and you never go back and read a book where Jackie Robinson struck out or got thrown out at second. Like, people are going to forget any of the shit that didn't work, and they're going to go.
He was never thrown out at second.
Yeah.
Don't lie about that. Hero.
I've got no proof of it from anything I read as a kid. So I think he's going to have a lot of that kind of stuff going for him. And then, whether Hillary is the glass ceiling or not is also kind of interesting. There's been this long, and women have never pulled together. And I don't know whether they're going to for Hillary.
I think she's going to. I predict she's going to. I want everybody to remain, who's with me, to remain scared until November, whatever the day is. I think she's going to win in a landslide.
Really?
55 to 45.
Okay, that's a landslide. That's a landslide.
Because I'll tell you why. But I think in terms of the real, like the guy who was the ghostwriter for Trump, if you're voting for Trump, you really are voting for someone who literally doesn't have an idea in his head. He doesn't. And he doesn't, didn't know what Brexit was. So then you're trusting the guy, even if you agree with him and think Obama's Kenyan. Do you really want a guy who you're trusting whoever he goes to in the moment of crisis? I think it's dangerous.
Well, I also will say this, though, that you got to look at it. Trump is a guy, and you've seen this in comedy, that is driven by winning, right? So just think of comedians that you've known that have done really well because they've used certain things, and they it's important to them to win. And I don't know if I've ever seen anyone in public life that likes to win as much as Trump does and brag about it.
But some of the comics that who are driven by ambition, some of them are smarter than him. He's not smart at all. He's a conniver. You know, my dad was a plumbing and heating contractor, and one time he hated Trump. Trump was a client of his. He would service these. My dad would service these buildings, and he hated Trump. Trump never paid. Never paid. You just had to force him to pay. And one time we got my dad the Art of the Deal board game as a joke, and he says, "What'd you get me this for?" And we're like, "Oh, Dad doesn't have a good sense of humor." And then a week later, we're like, "Why did we get him that?" the guy's a fucking. So I think what's going to happen is that's the part that's like he's not. The reason why he's going to lose is he's not smart. He's not smart like Hitler was early on. He's not. He's not. He's an idiot. He's still talking about how he should have won Iowa and stuff like that. Yeah. You know? So he's going to lose.
I think it's kind of interesting that you compared Trump to Hitler. Then your dad ended up working for Trump. It's almost like, could you imagine hearing from some? We did construction work for Hitler.
Let me tell you something. Right? Yeah.
And he fucking stiffed us, that prick.
Yeah.
I don't even want to get into what he did with the Jews. I'm telling you, this son of a bitch doesn't pay up. It really does seem like for everybody here, 20 or 30 years from now, you're going to be telling the people, no, I did. I lived through that. I was there. I remember when that shit went down. But it's almost like now, do you ever notice like we thought at the time 9/11 was going to be the weirdest time ever. And now it just almost seems like it's not. You know, it's like.
Do you think he has a chance of winning?
Yes, I do. I think he, and it's because, no, I'm telling you, right now, Nate Silver said the other day, and he predicted every state correct last time. He goes, if it was held today, Trump would win. I've been around the country and see Trump signs at places that I didn't expect to see them.
Well, I happen to feel there's two sides to Nate Silver. Nate Silver is the greatest statistician or whatever you want to call that in the history of the world. It was someone who's able to look at, you want him to win poker, you want him to do that. But he's been very wrong when he predicted Obama wouldn't be reelected a year before. I don't think he's so great at predicting before the things start happening. I also think he's trying to scare people.
You honestly believe that?
Absolutely, because he knows it'd be horrible. But he not till that long ago, he was saying that Hillary had 80% chance.
Yeah, there was the 80% chance, and it's dropped way down.
Even after this convention?
Well, I don't think the new convention numbers are...
Come on, Ron, please.
No, I'm just going to win the room. How many people that are American, or how many people just think Trump is going to win this election? Do you know?
Out! You know what's so weird about me? It's like I don't know how I'm going to get past this particular thing of people voting for Trump. Yeah. I don't have a current plan as to how to still have coffee with someone who's going to say, oh, there's my African American.
Yeah. But at the same time, everybody does kind of want to see the third act. You know what I mean?
No, nobody.
Everyone is just like, dude, would you ever have left Titanic before it hit the iceberg?
That's true.
Like, I'm going to stay and see what happens. I mean, do you know how many Christians that we've just been obsessed for the end times forever? And this might be your chance just to see people running down the street on fire, just like, ah!
Well, that's the... Yeah, but you're looking at it like as if that you can look at that and then you would get off the ship somehow.
Right. Yeah, no.
That was crazy. You see the woman in flames? Yeah. Now let's get into our little life preserver boat.
No, I'm looking at it seriously like a recovering alcoholic and addict, remembering when I used to go, oh, I think my heart's going to stop. No, not yet. You know what I mean? Like, I think Trump is the drug. You know what I mean? I really do.
Oh, here's the other thing that I think why I think he's going to lose. I even liked Reagan, and I couldn't stand his policies. Mm-hmm. People who like Trump, and I think they're going to top out at whatever it is, 40% or 38%, they'll never stop loving him. Everybody else hates him. Like, they hate him. there's nothing attractive. Like women hate him, everyone hates him.
And that's Clinton's same kind of numbers too. I mean, the people that don't like Clinton,
they're not afraid of her ending the world.
No,
though.
she is literally the weirdest thing. Is Clinton is the conservative person in this race.
Right.
Like she's like, well, nothing big might is going to happen, but I also don't think that she's just going to start nuking everybody.
No, she's a reasonable human being. She's
Right.
She helped children get the health insurance and everything.
Yeah.
Right. But the thing about it is, I think people. I don't even buy those that they're. I don't buy any. It's like people base their Islamophobia on that they ask Muslims. Do they like depictions of Muhammad or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
It's like 70% of Americans thought Saddam Hussein was behind 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
These polls mean nothing. If someone was talking about me the way they talked about, well, they do talk about me that way, but and that's why I don't have huge numbers now. But if they talk about Hillary Clinton for 40 years and the media says she's you shouldn't trust her, of course you're going to answer on a poll,
Right?
Whether you're going to trust her or not. But that's not going to affect the election. Everything I say is such a hope more than something I know.
You're still the hope poster after all these years.
Yeah, I believe it's like it's like people say like I believe in God. Like I don't know who God is. All I know is I dropped acid and I had out of body experiences. And when I'm on stage, sometimes I can feel like it's transcendent. So I don't know what it is, but I think something's going on. I think ultimately everything is for the good in the universe, but I'm not completely sure of it. I have doubt of everything.
You know what I think is interesting, and I've never heard anyone say this before, and I know people know it when you said when you're on stage, it's transcendent because there is, and it can happen across the whole room. A lot of times I think it's easier to figure out with music than it is with comedy, but I absolutely think that it exists with comedy where you are channeling more maybe than you're thinking of stuff.
I think it is what you're saying is all spirituality. To me, is all spirituality is. It's like because I was scared of getting beaten up, I took martial arts, and martial arts they have something that's called no mind. Mm-hmm. And the example they give is the Zen teacher who says, I'm going to hit you with a sword when you come in. And so the guy, the student comes in, looks to the left, he gets hit from the right. He looks to the right, he gets hit from the left. He looks up, he gets hit. When he's not looking in any direction, he's able to defend themselves. And that, to me, is the secret of any art or anything. And you can't always have it, but it's that moment where you don't even know where you are because you're not thinking about anything else. You're
right.
Totally in the moment. And that's what I call God, and that's what I call spirituality. And that's why, if you like art or you like music, mm-hmm. People, they went to Woodstock. Don't you know why you were all like, everyone is, this has been going on forever.
Yes.
This way of getting out. And even in the Catholic Church, the incense and the windows and the thing, it's a way to get you out of your own mind. And it sounds pretentious if I walked around saying, I really connected to God last night on stage.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But I've met and interviewed some of the greatest songwriters of all time. I've never heard one of them to say, I wrote that song. I feel responsible for writing that song. They have and they all use different words, but it's all about kind of catching that song when it comes in. And I don't give a shit whether it's Paul McCartney. He'll be like, in 4 minutes, I wrote it. He doesn't know how. Exactly,
it doesn't know how.
But
Einstein was like that because people say, well, Einstein meant it when he said he didn't come from his rational mind. It doesn't mean that if you're not a physicist, you can come up with E equals MC squared. But once his thought, thinking experiments were like, he was saying, I get into this other space where I allow things to come in.
Yeah.
That's part of it too. Is allowing it to come in.
Exactly.
If you're looking around going, there's no God, there's no God. Look at that dog died, and I don't see him walking around anymore. So there's no life after death. You can't have anything come in. And I have had on LSD. This is a true story. My friend and I had the same hallucination that we had ripped these doors off their hinges, and they'd fallen into a parking lot, and then we ran behind a curtain, and then 2 minutes later we walked back and then nothing had happened. So if you have a shared hallucination, I know many people are thinking that you both were insane doesn't count.
No, but I do think that's why people do drugs so they can get closer to that spot.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why Ken Kesey hated cocaine, because he felt like, and he was right. When I first did cocaine, I loved it for 12 minutes. And then any other time, and luckily I didn't have money to get, and I have a weak constitution. Like Belushi, they go, oh, he could do all this stuff and go on. I was a person who would very easily get sick, thank God. And so I couldn't get further into it. But that's what Kesey felt like. LSD, those were trying to expand your mind. These other things, when cocaine came in, it was like an anesthetic.
So that's what you chase. That that creativity thing on stage is your drug, right? That's what you chase to try to find that spot.
Yeah, and the other thing about it is the Zen thing, the Buddhist thing that I really buy is non-attachment. Not so much that you don't love things, but the more, it's like, in my 20s, I wanted to be famous. I really did. I really can say now, in my 50s, I don't sit around going, I have to have my own show. It's like, if you make having that moment on stage the most important thing to you, then it's going to be elusive to you. So it's almost like you have to be ready for it. And also because of the 30 years of doing stand-up, which is, to me, I feel so blessed about it. Stand-up is the one art form where if you stick with it and you don't quit, you're going to get better at it. So a lot of it is I don't even have to think about whether I'm in the moment. I think I'm just kind of in that zone a lot, not always, though.
Right. But that's weird. That's your place of Zen that you found yourself.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was a musician too before,
Yeah.
and I never had the same highs from music as I get from comedy because I didn't have the technique to get to the next level with it.
Well, you're still working the technique, my friend. Thanks so much for coming
Thank
in here
you
today.
very
This was
much.
a lot of fun. Andy Kindler, everybody, let him hear it. Dude, that was great.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you so much.